Hi, friend. I'm Melissa, and welcome back to Midlife with Melissa. Wherever you are listening today, I am so glad you are here. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's spend a little time together. In our last episode, we talked about brain fog, anxiety, and the fear that can grow when your mind no longer feels dependable. I shared something that took me a long time to understand. A symptom may interrupt your day, but it does not get to write your biography. Today, I want to take that conversation one step further, because symptoms are not the only things we sometimes allow to define us. We also build our identities around the roles we have played. Mother, wife, grandmother, daughter, employee, caregiver, the dependable one, the woman who remembers everything, handles everything, and makes sure everyone else is okay. Those roles can become so much a part of us that we stop noticing where the role ends and the woman begins. For me, motherhood was never simply another responsibility. It was something I wanted deeply. Being a mother brought me some of the greatest happiness of my life. For more than 20 years, so much of my time, energy, love, and identity centered around my family. I wanted to be present for everything I could be present for. I loved being needed. I loved knowing where I belonged. And there is nothing wrong with loving those roles. This episode is not about pretending they did not matter or convincing ourselves that we should never have invested so much of our hearts in other people. They mattered because the people inside those roles mattered. But life changes. Children grow up. Relationships change. Marriages go through different seasons. Jobs end. The house becomes quieter. People stop needing us in the ways they once did. Sometimes those changes happen naturally, and sometimes they happen suddenly. And sometimes they happen in ways we never wanted or expected. When enough of those roles change at the same time, we can find ourselves standing in the quiet and asking, if I am no longer doing all the things that once made me feel needed, who am I? Who am I now? I think that question is at the heart of midlife for so many women. We have spent years introducing ourselves through our connections to other people and through everything we do for them. But underneath every title, every responsibility, and every role, there has always been a whole woman. She did not disappear when the children grew up. She did not lose her value when the job ended. She did not become less worthy when a relationship changed. She may have become difficult to hear beneath all the noise and responsibility, but she is still there. And maybe this part of life is not asking us to abandon the roles we have loved. Maybe it is asking us to finally meet the woman who has been living underneath them all along. The question beneath the titles. There is a question that sounds simple until you try to answer it. Who are you when you cannot answer with a relationship or a job title? Most of us introduce ourselves by explaining where we fit in other people's lives. We say that we are a mother, a wife, a grandmother, an employee, or a caregiver. Those answers tell people something about our lives, but they do not describe the entire person standing in front of them. When I began thinking about this time for myself, I realized how difficult it was to describe Melissa without first explaining who I was to somebody else. If I set aside mother, wife, grandmother, bookkeeper, podcast host, what words would I use? I am curious. I pay close attention to people. I notice small shifts in someone's voice or expression that other people may overlook. I love learning how things work. I enjoy painting, planting, cooking, and I love looking at the night sky. I can sit with a question for hours because I want to understand what is underneath it. Those parts of me do not depend on another person needing something from me. They belong to me. That distinction was difficult to recognize because I had become very comfortable being useful. I knew how to take care of people, solve problems, remember details, and step in when something needed to be handled. What I did not know was how to describe myself when usefulness was no longer the first thing being asked of me. The qualities I brought into my roles did not come from the titles themselves. Motherhood gave me a place to express tenderness, patience, and devotion, but it did not create those qualities. Work gave me a place to use organization, responsibility, and persistence, but the job title did not own those abilities. I had been giving the roles credit for qualities that belonged to the woman performing them. Once I began separating the two, I could see myself more clearly. The titles explained where I had invested my time and love. My character explained who had been showing up to do it. That realization helped me look at my interests differently. I used to think of painting, planting, fishing, cooking, and tinkering with things as activities I enjoyed whenever I had extra time. Now I see they also reveal parts of my personality that no title could fully explain. When anything breaks, I want to understand why it is not working. I enjoy looking at the pieces, trying different possibilities, and seeing whether I can get it running again. That tells me I am curious, patient, practical, and willing to stay with a problem. Fishing brings out another side of me. I love being outside near the water and quietness, even though I rarely get the opportunity to go. Painting gives me room to create something that has began as an idea in my mind. Planting allows me to work with my hands and enjoy the results after. Even my interest in astronomy comes from me wanting to understand more than what I can directly see in front of me. These are not simply ways to pass the time. They tell me something about the woman doing them. I like to understand. I like to create. I like to repair what I can. I enjoy learning, and I am more capable than I have given myself credit for. Those qualities have followed me into every role I've had. I use them while working as a bookkeeper. I use them while caring for my family. I use them now as I learn how to record, edit, and produce this podcast. The podcast did not create my curiosity. It gave my curiosity a new assignment. That sentence changed the way I think about rediscovering yourself. I used to imagine that finding myself would require one dramatic answer. I thought I needed to uncover a single purpose, choose one new title, or become a completely different woman. But identity did not return to me in one grand announcement. It showed up in patterns. It was in the way I could lose track of time while working on a painting. It was in the satisfaction I felt when I understood why something mechanical was not working. It was in the questions that kept leading me from one article, program, or tutorial to the next. It was in the patience to plant something and keep caring for it before there was anything beautiful to see. When I placed those moments beside one another, I could see the same woman moving through all of them. She was observant. She wanted to participate instead of standing at a distance. She was willing to learn by trying, and she did not mind returning to a problem when the first answer failed. That is important because you may not recognize yourself through one obvious passion either. You may find yourself through the patterns that keep repeating across the things you enjoy. Pay attention to what makes you lean closer, ask another question, or forget to look at the clock. Those moments may be quietly introducing you to yourself. That helped me see the roles in different ways. Instead of asking each title to prove who I was, I began asking what I had brought into it. Being a mother remains a deeply important part of my identity. I am a mother of 2 adult daughters and a son, and I love having that title. The way motherhood looks in my daily life today does not erase the love, devotion, and hope I carry as their mom. I also think about what I want them to know as they move through their own lives. I want them to have information I did not have when I entered midlife. I want daughters listening to understand that their mothers may be experiencing physical and emotional shifts that are difficult to recognize and even harder to explain. Every role gave me a place to use parts of myself. The role may look different with time, but the qualities I brought into it remain mine to carry forward. There was a period when getting through the day required more effort than anyone around me could see. Sunshine gave me a responsibility I could not ignore. She needed to be let outside, fed, loved, and cared for. On days when I had stopped showing up for myself, I continued showing up for her. I honestly don't know where I would be today without that little dog. She lived beside me through a time when crying was part of almost every day. When laughter began returning to our home, the sound startled her. She had heard me cry so often that she had to learn what my laughter sounded like. Now she gets to relax. She knows her mommy is okay. Taking care of Sunshine kept me moving. Trying new things helped me learn who the woman caring for her was. I began painting last year. Before that, I had attended a handful of painting classes with my youngest daughter, who is a wonderful artist. I could paint when the picture had already been outlined on the canvas, but I never believed I could begin with an empty one. I had decided I lacked artistic ability without giving myself a fair opportunity to find out. Then I tried. I began creating paintings on large canvases, and some of them are beautiful. Each one showed me that I had placed a limit on myself that had never been tested. There was a real difference between walking into a painting class where part of the picture had already been drawn and standing in front of a completely blank canvas at home. In the class, I had a starting point. Someone had already shown me where the image belonged. An empty canvas gave me somewhere to hide from the belief that I might not be capable. At first, every decision felt permanent. Where should the horizon go? What if I choose the wrong color? What if the picture in my mind looked nothing like the one I created? I had to learn that paint could be changed. A section could be covered, softened, moved, or approached again the next day. A mistake was not proof that I lacked ability. It was simply part of learning how to make the next decision. That lesson reached far beyond painting. I realized how many things I had avoided because I believed the first attempt would reveal whether I belonged there. If I was not immediately good at something, I treated that discomfort as evidence that it was not for me. But beginners are supposed to hesitate. They are supposed to ask questions, make corrections, and create things that do not yet match the picture in their minds. Being new at something is not the same as being incapable of it. The blank canvas taught me to stop demanding proof before I allowed myself to begin. Sometimes we do not discover confidence and then try. Sometimes we try, stay with the discomfort, and confidence begins forming because we have evidence that we did not walk away. My interest in the night sky also grew through my youngest daughter. She has always loved the moon. She would paint it or photograph it in such a way, while I had spent most of my life going to bed early and missing it. Her love for the moon made me curious. Almost 2 years ago now, I got a telescope. Once I saw the sky through it, I was hooked. I wanted to stay awake late enough to watch it. There is nothing like seeing with your own eyes what has been above you the entire time. Planting has been part of my life since childhood. My grandparents raised me spending a great deal of time in the garden and flower beds. I love cooking and baking, and last year I taught myself to make a very good homemade frosting. I enjoy computers and working in many programs. I can design a web page. I have also learned how to record, edit, design, and build a podcast. I have had guidance along the way, but guidance could not do the learning for me. I had to follow the instructions, make decisions, correct mistakes, and return to the work when something did not turn out correctly. For most of my life, I could not stand up and say that I was proud of myself. Today, I can. I am proud of who I am. I am proud of where I am. That pride does not erase the difficult years behind me. It recognizes what I did with them. But I kept learning. I allowed myself to try things I once believed were beyond me. I found abilities that had gone untested because I had already decided I did not possess them. I became a mother when I was young. So I once assumed that I had no identity before motherhood. Now I understand that I simply had not been given enough time to meet every part of myself. The woman who can paint, repair a small motor, grow a garden, look through a telescope, design a web page, and create a podcast was not invented recently. She was the woman entering every role all along. I had only underestimated how much she carried with her. Being proud of myself once felt uncomfortable to say out loud. I knew how to praise other people. I could recognize their talent, intelligence, strength, and effort without hesitation. When it came to my own accomplishments, I usually brushed them aside or treated them as things I was simply supposed to do. If I solved a problem, I moved to the next one. If I learned something difficult, I focused on how much more I had to learn. If I created something beautiful, I could immediately point out the part that was not quite right. I rarely stopped long enough to give myself credit. A great deal of what I accomplished also benefited someone else. Caring for my family, keeping a home running, handling responsibilities, and working had a clear purpose. Someone needed something, and I knew how to respond. Learning something purely because I was interested in it felt different. There was no grade, paycheck, or person waiting for the finished result. I had to decide that my own curiosity was reason enough. That required a kind of confidence I had never practiced. The first time I looked at a large canvas that I had completed, I could have searched for every flaw. Instead, I allowed myself to see what I had created, and I was proud. When I learned to operate my telescope, build a web page, or edit an episode, I stopped treating those accomplishments as accidents. I had asked questions, I followed directions, practiced, and corrected errors until I understood what I was doing. Accepting guidance does not take away from that work. Every capable person has learned from someone. The accomplishment is found in what we do with the help we receive. I also had to understand that being proud of myself did not take anything away from the people I love. There is room in my life for devotion to my family and respect for myself. Recognizing my abilities does not reduce the love I carry as a mother or the care I give to Jason and Sunshine. It simply allows me to see the person doing the loving and caring. I also began noticing the difference between being needed and being known. For much of my life, the two felt almost identical. If someone needed me, I knew what to do. I could help, organize, fix, remember, comfort, or take care of the next responsibility. Their need gave me a clear place to stand. But when a day became quiet and nobody was asking anything from me, I did not always know how to feel valuable inside that space. I had spent so much time measuring a good day by what I completed for somebody else that enjoyment without a purpose could feel almost undeserved. Learning myself required a new question. Instead of asking, "Who needs me today?" I began asking, "What makes me feel present in my own life today?" The answer was not always productive. Sometimes it was sitting at the window, watching the birds. Sometimes it was stepping outside to look at the sky, checking on something I had planted, or sitting beside sunshine and realizing the house no longer felt as heavy as it once had. Those moments did not make me less devoted to the people I love. They helped me become a woman who could recognize herself even in the quiet. Being needed is a meaningful experience, but it cannot be the only evidence we accept that our presence matters. Today, when I say I am proud of myself, I am not claiming that I have done everything perfectly. I am acknowledging that I kept learning during a difficult period of my life. I tried things that frightened me. I developed skills that I once assumed belonged to another person. That is an honest account of what I have done. I wonder how many women have trouble giving themselves the same recognition. We can describe our children's strengths in detail. We can list everything our partners do well. We can recommend a friend for a job and explain exactly why she is qualified. Then someone asks us what we are good at, and we struggle to answer without minimizing ourselves. If you are listening, think about one ability you developed later in life. It does not need to impress anyone else. It could be something practical, creative, physical, technical, or deeply personal. Can you name what it required from you? Can you acknowledge the patience, courage, discipline, or curiosity you brought to it? That answer tells you far more about your identity than any title ever could. If you have spent most of your life describing yourself through your responsibilities, finding words for the woman underneath them may feel awkward at first. There is a simple exercise that can help. Write down the roles you have held throughout your life. Include the obvious ones, along with the quieter responsibilities that never came with an official title. Beside each role, write what it required from you. Raising children may have required patience, advocacy, flexibility, and the ability to function when you were exhausted. Working may have required organization, reliability, communication, or learning new systems. Caring for someone may have called for attentiveness and compassion. Maintaining a home may have required planning, budgeting, problem solving, and 100 decisions that nobody else noticed. Now set the titles aside and read the qualities. That list is describing you. Many of those abilities can be carried into a new interest, a different responsibility, or a part of life you have not explored yet. A woman who coordinated a household has experience managing complicated demands. A woman who advocated for her child knows how to research, ask questions, and speak up. A woman who kept going through uncertainty has already practiced courage, even if she never used the word to describe herself. We often overlook these abilities because nobody handed us a certificate for developing them. There was no graduation ceremony for learning how to remain calm during a family emergency. No promotion came when figuring out how to stretch a budget, care for an aging relative, or guide a child through a difficult year. The absence of recognition does not erase the skill involved. One way to make those hidden skills easier to see is to follow them from an old role into something you are doing now. My bookkeeping work required attention to detail, comfort with computer programs, patience with numbers, and the willingness to search until I found the source of a problem. Those same qualities now help me edit audio, organize episode files, build web pages, and learn the technical side of podcasting. The subject changed, but the woman using the skill did not. You may be able to find a similar bridge in your own life. Think of one role you have held for a long time and ask yourself 3 questions. What did this role teach me to notice? What did it teach me to handle? And what did it require me to keep doing, even when I was tired, uncertain, or afraid? Then look at your answers without the title attached. Maybe you learned to anticipate problems, explain complicated things clearly, bring calm into tense moments, create beauty with limited resources, or begin again after disappointment. Those are not abilities that expire when a season changes. Now, ask where one of those qualities could go next. Your patience might belong in a garden, a classroom, a creative project, or a new friendship. Your organization might help you build something of your own. Your compassion may need to include the woman in the mirror. Your persistence might be exactly what carries you through the awkward beginning of something you wanted to try. You are not beginning this chapter empty-handed. You are arriving with years of experience, even if the next place you use it looks completely different from the place where you learned it. After you have written your qualities, add something you have wanted to explore. Choose something that interests you without requiring it to become productive, profitable, or impressive. You are allowed to learn something simply because you enjoy it. Pay attention to what holds your attention. Notice the subjects you continue reading about, the projects you imagine attempting, and the activities that leave you feeling more engaged with your own life. You do not need a complete plan for who you are going to become. Begin by giving one neglected part of yourself a little room. That could mean taking a class, returning to an old interest, trying something you once assumed you could not do, or spending an hour learning about a subject that has always drawn you in. The goal is simple. Notice yourself. You have spent years learning the people around you. You know what they enjoy, what they need, what frustrates them, and what helps them feel loved. You deserve to know yourself with that same level of attention. At this point in my life, I no longer need one title to explain all of me. I am the mother of 2 adult daughters, a second mother to a son, and I am proud to carry those titles. I am Jason's wife and Sunshine's mommy. I am also a painter, gardener, cook, baker, problem solver, stargazer, podcast creator, and a woman who enjoys fixing things that are broken. All of those descriptions can live together. Learning more about myself does not require me to remove the people I love from my story. It gives me a fuller understanding of the woman who has been loving them. I am learning to stop measuring my worth by how many people need something from me on a particular day. Being needed can feel good, and caring for others remains an important part of my life. It is no longer the only place I look for proof that I have something to offer. I can create something nobody requested. I can learn about a subject purely because it fascinates me. I can be proud of an accomplishment even when nobody else sees how much work it required. I can give attention to my own interests without reducing the love I give to anyone else. Discovering these parts of myself has brought genuine happiness into my life. It has also helped me recognize the sadness I carry about the way I once expected my life to look. Pride and grief can exist in the same woman. You can appreciate who you are becoming while grieving plans, relationships, or dreams that unfolded differently from what you pictured. That is where our next conversation will begin. In episode 11, we are going to talk about grieving the life you thought you would have, the future that you pictured, the relationships you expected to hold, and the feelings that surface when reality does not match the life that you planned. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with one question. When you look beneath all the roles you have played, what quality do you recognize in yourself? And where would you like to use it next? Give yourself time to answer honestly. You do not have to turn the answer into a major life decision. Let it teach you one new thing about yourself. And until next time, give yourself credit for the woman who has been doing the work all along. And remember, I've been saving you a seat.